If you create music, sing, live stream, record vocals, or just want an easy way to monitor yourself while recording on your phone, the Synido Live Dock E10 is a surprisingly interesting little device. But here's the important part. I don't think the E10 is really competing with a conventional audio interface. It's solving a different problem. Synido has essentially combined an IEM style headset, microphone, monitoring system, DSP effects, Bluetooth connectivity and USB-C audio interface into one compact package. And at around $40, that's pretty ambitious. After spending time with it, my biggest takeaway is that the E10 makes a lot of sense if convenience and real-time monitoring matter more to you than the flexibility of a traditional recording setup. The sound is good, the monitoring is genuinely useful and it's remarkably easy to use. So let's look at what the Synido Live Dock E10 does, how it sounds and who should and shouldn't buy one. Let's start with the biggest difference between the E10 and a conventional audio interface. Normally if I wanted to record vocals on my phone, I'd need an interface, microphone, headphones or IEMs, cables and probably a stand or mounting solution. The E10 eliminates most of that. You get the earphones, microphone, control electronics and USB-C connection in one system. And that makes a huge difference if you're working from a smartphone. The E10 supports 24-bit 48 kHz audio, USB-C connectivity and real-time monitoring. But honestly, those numbers aren't the interesting part. The real advantage is hearing your own voice, essentially as you're producing it. When you're singing or recording spoken vocals, even a small monitoring delay can be distracting. You start compensating for the delay instead of concentrating on your performance. With direct monitoring, that problem largely disappears. You hear your own voice immediately, making it much easier to control pitch, volume and delivery. And this is where I think the E10 makes the most sense. It's not trying to be a miniature recording studio. It's trying to make recording or live streaming simple enough that you can plug it in and start creating. There are independent volume controls, a microphone mute button, monitoring controls and Bluetooth connectivity. Bluetooth is particularly useful. You can have music playing wirelessly while singing or recording without building a complicated routing setup. For karaoke, live streaming or casual music creation, that's extremely convenient. There's also DSP processing, including sound effects and reverb. I wouldn't use these sound effects for a serious clean recording, but that's not the point. For live streaming or karaoke, a little reverb can make monitoring yourself much more enjoyable. And for social media content, having those controls immediately available is much more convenient than opening a DAW and setting up everything manually. The physical design is another nice touch. The E10 has a futuristic transparent aesthetic, while the earphones use an IEM style fit. The shells are also detachable, using a standard 0.78mm 2-pin connection, so you're not completely locked into the supplied pair if one eventually fails or you want to try another compatible set. The whole system is extremely compact, and that's probably its biggest selling point. You can throw it into a small bag, connect it to your phone or laptop, and you're ready to go. No interface on the desk, no separate microphone stand, no headphone amplifier, and no collection of adapters. For mobile creators, that simplicity is genuinely useful. Now let's talk about the part I am most interested in, the sound. Because the E10 isn't just another microphone accessory. You're also using the included IEMs to monitor your voice and music. For something in this price range, I think the overall presentation is quite respectable. The sound is designed to be engaging rather than aggressively analytical. There's enough bass to make music sound full and enjoyable without feeling excessively bloated. That matters when monitoring vocals, because too much low-end emphasis can make your voice sound thicker than it actually is. The mid-range is where the E10 does its most important job. Vocals are reasonably clear and easy to follow, with enough upper mid-range presence to help with articulation. It's not the kind of sound I would choose over generally good audiophile IEMs for critical music listening, but I don't think Synido is asking you to do that. This is functional monitoring, and in that context it works. The detail retrieval is decent for the price, although you shouldn't expect the separation or micro detail of a dedicated IEM paired with a good DAC. The soundstage is also fairly intimate. Again, that's not necessarily a problem. For monitoring vocals, I actually prefer a presentation that keeps the voice immediate rather than pushing everything far away. Imaging is good enough to understand where the sound is coming from, but this isn't the kind of product I would recommend for evaluating tiny spatial cues in a recording. Dynamics are also fairly straightforward. The E10 doesn't have the effortless contrast of a more capable dedicated DAC and amplifier. But it doesn't need to. The important question is whether it lets you hear what you're doing clearly. And the answer is yes. I also appreciate that the monitoring system doesn't feel like an afterthought. The IEMs, microphone and processing are designed to work together as one system. That's why I think it's more useful to see this as a creator tool rather than a cheap DAC with some extras thrown in. Now let's talk about the microphone. Synido uses a built-in condenser microphone combined with noise reduction processing. For spoken voice, the E10 can produce a surprisingly usable result when you're relatively close to the microphone. It's clear enough for voice chat, live streaming, short-form videos and casual recording. But keep your expectations realistic. This isn't going to replace a good dedicated condenser microphone. There's simply no substitute for microphone placement, a proper acoustic environment and a larger dedicated capsule. So if you're building a serious voiceover or podcasting setup, I'd still choose a conventional microphone and interface. But that's missing the point. The E10 is valuable because the microphone is always there. You're not setting anything up, positioning a stand or checking whether you're sitting in the correct place. You put the headset on and start talking. For spontaneous content, that's a much bigger advantage than it might sound on paper. Now let's talk about the pros and cons, starting with the cons. There are a few things I don't love. The first is that the E10 is a very specialized product. If you already own good IEMs, a decent USB DAC and a microphone, you're probably not going to replace all of that with this. A traditional interface gives you considerably more flexibility. You can choose your microphone and headphones, upgrade individual components and have more control over gain staging and connectivity. The E10 sacrifices much of that flexibility for simplicity. That's a trade-off you need to understand before buying it. The second limitation is the supplied earphones. They're perfectly functional, but if you're coming from higher-end IEMs, don't expect them to compete with dedicated audiophile earphones in refinement, separation or spaciousness. But those criticisms need to be balanced against what the E10 is actually trying to achieve. Its strongest feature is how much functionality you actually get without having to think about it. You connect it, put the earphones on, monitor yourself, add accompaniment, mute the microphone, adjust levels and start recording. That's it. For someone who just wants to create content, rather than spending a whole afternoon configuring a system, that's a compelling proposition. So, who should buy the Synido Live Dock E10? I'd seriously consider it if you're a singer, live streamer, mobile content creator, gamer, karaoke enthusiast, or someone who regularly records directly from a phone. It's particularly interesting if you don't already own audio equipment. For roughly $40, you're getting a surprisingly complete recording and monitoring system. I would also consider it for somebody who travels a lot. This is the kind of product you can keep in a small bag and forget about it until you need it. When you do, everything is already there. Who should skip it? If you're an audiophile seeking the best music quality, don't buy it. Get a good IEM and a dedicated DAC instead. And if you're building a serious recording studio, I would also skip it. A proper audio interface with separate microphone and headphone connections gives you much more room to grow. But if your priority is portability and simplicity, the E10 is arguably the more interesting solution. So, after using the Synido Live Dock E10, what's my final verdict? It's not a miniature professional studio, and it doesn't need to be. Synido has created an affordable, compact creator tool that combines monitoring, microphone input, processing and playback into one simple system. The sound is good, real-time monitoring is generally useful, plus Bluetooth and DSP effects add flexibility. The biggest advantage is convenience. You don't need to build an entire audio setup around it. It sacrifices some refinements and flexibility, but at around $40, the trade-offs make sense. So here's the bottom line. If you want audiophile grade playback, buy a good IEM and DAC. But if you want an inexpensive grab-and-go system for singing, streaming and recording, the Synido Live Dock E10 makes a surprisingly strong case for itself. It doesn't replace a studio, it simply makes creating easier. And for its price, that's pretty impressive. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I see you in the next one.